I should have known she was planning to destroy me the moment she smiled when I suggested the vacation. That smile, Christ, I can still see it now, sitting here in what used to be our kitchen 6 months later. It wasn't the warm, genuine expression I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. This was different, calculated, like she'd been waiting for me to hand her exactly what she needed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The real moment I should have known my marriage was over wasn't when I caught Jenna in that hotel room with Marcus Webb's hands all over her. It was 3 weeks earlier, when she stopped looking me in the eye during dinner. We were eating the chicken parmesan I'd made, one of the few dishes I could manage after 12-hour shifts at the construction site. I was telling her about the problems we'd had with the foundation pour that day, how the concrete truck broke down and cost us half a day's work. Normal conversation, the kind of thing married couples share. She nodded in all the right places, made appropriate sounds of sympathy, even asked a follow-up question about whether we'd meet our deadline. But her eyes never left her plate. When I really thought about it later, she hadn't made eye contact with me in weeks. That's when the paranoia started creeping in, though I didn't recognize it at the time. Her phone was always face down now. She'd started this new fitness routine, buying clothes I'd never seen before. Not the practical stuff she usually wore, but things with lace and colors that made her skin glow. When I'd reach for her shoulder while she was doing dishes, she'd flinch like my calloused hands might leave marks on her silk blouse. "We should take a vacation," I said one evening in late March, the words tumbling out before I'd really thought them through. "Just the two of us. Get away from everything." That's when she gave me that smile. "Oh, David," she said, and for a split second, her eyes met mine with something that looked like pity. "That sounds wonderful." I should have paid attention to the pause, should have noticed how quickly she recovered, how her voice got that bright, artificial quality it took on when she was performing for her mother's church friends. "Where were you thinking?" she asked, already pulling out her phone. "That place up in Grand Lake, the resort with the cabin rentals." I'd been researching it for weeks, looking at pictures of couples holding hands by the water, imagining Jenna and me walking those trails like we used to when we were dating. "I've been working doubles for 2 months. We can afford it." "Perfect," she said, typing rapidly. Then she looked up, and I swear I saw calculation flash across her features before the performance resumed. "You know what? We should ask Lily to come with us." My stomach dropped. "Your sister? On our romantic getaway?" "Just for support. You know how I get anxious in new places." She was already texting, probably to Lily herself. "Besides, she's been so depressed since her separation. It would be good for her." Lily had been separated from her husband Rob for 6 months, though she seemed to spend more time out at bars than mourning her marriage. But Jenna had always been protective of her younger sister, and I'd learned to pick my battles. "Sure," I said, "if it'll make you happy." She beamed at me then, a real smile this time, or at least a better imitation of one. "You're the best husband in the world, David." 3 days later, I was packing for what I thought would be a chance to save my marriage. That's when I found the lingerie in her suitcase. Black lace, expensive, tags still on. I'd never seen her wear anything like it. In 15 years of marriage, Jenna's idea of sexy sleepwear was one of my old construction t-shirts. But here was evidence of a whole different person, someone who bought silk and lace and knew exactly how good she looked in it. Someone who just wasn't buying it for me. I stood there in our bedroom, holding that scrap of fabric, and felt the first real crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. The drive to Grand Lake should have been peaceful. Spring in Colorado meant clear mountain air and valleys full of wildflowers, the kind of scenery that makes you remember why you chose to build a life here instead of chasing big city dreams. Instead, I spent 3 hours watching my wife and sister-in-law exchange glances in the rearview mirror. They thought they were being subtle, little looks when they thought I was focused on the road. Lily would catch Jenna's eye and raise an eyebrow, or Jenna would give her sister a tiny shake of the head. It was like watching two people communicate in a language I didn't speak, making plans I wasn't invited to understand. "Beautiful country up here," I said, trying to fill the silence that had settled over the car like fog. Jenna murmured, her attention on her phone. Always that damn phone now. Her thumbs moved constantly across the screen, and with each message, her face would brighten in a way that made my chest tight. "Remember when we used to camp up here?" I tried again. "Before we got married? You said it was the most beautiful place you'd ever seen." "Of course I remember." She didn't look up. "That was a long time ago." Lily shifted in the back seat. "Jenna tells me you've been working a lot of overtime lately." It wasn't a question, but it felt like one anyway, like I was being interviewed for something. "Construction season's busy. Good money while it lasts." "Must be hard on the marriage, though. All those long hours." I caught her eyes in the mirror. There was something almost predatory in her expression, like she was probing for weak spots. "We manage fine." "I'm sure you do." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Jenna's lucky to have such a dedicated husband." The way she said dedicated made it sound like a character flaw. The Lakeside Pine Resort was exactly what the website had promised. Rustic cabins scattered around a pristine mountain lake with a main lodge that served decent food and strong drinks. Our cabin had 2 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and a view of the water that should have been romantic. Jenna claimed exhaustion after dinner and went to bed before 9, leaving Lily and me at the lodge bar. This hadn't been part of my plan for reconnecting with my wife, but Lily seemed determined to keep me company. "She's been under a lot of stress lately," Lily said, nursing her 3rd gin and tonic. The alcohol was making her talkative, less careful with her words. "What kind of stress?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "Oh, you know, work stuff, family stuff." She waved her hand vaguely. "Sometimes a woman just needs space to figure things out." "Figure what out?" I asked. Lily's eyes went wide, like she'd said more than she meant to. "Nothing specific, just life, you know? Sometimes you reach a point where you have to make some hard choices about what you really want." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. 15 years of managing construction crews had taught me not to react until I had all the information. "Hard choices," I repeated. "I've said too much." She finished her drink in one gulp. "Forget I said anything. I'm drunk and talking nonsense." But she wasn't drunk enough to be careless by accident. Everything about this conversation felt rehearsed, like she was testing how much I suspected, how much I might already know. The next morning at breakfast, Jenna was glued to her phone again. Every ping of a new message made her face light up like Christmas morning, the kind of pure joy I hadn't seen from her in months. "Digital detox day," I suggested, trying to sound casual. "Let's leave the phones in the room and just enjoy being here." Both women immediately objected. "I need to stay available for work," Jenna said. "What if there's an emergency?" Lily added. "It's Saturday," I pointed out. "Emergencies don't follow the calendar," Jenna snapped, then caught herself and softened her tone. "I just feel better knowing I can be reached if needed." That afternoon by the pool, everything came to a head. Jenna excused herself to make a phone call, claiming she needed to check on something important. I watched her walk toward our cabin with her phone pressed to her ear. But something about her body language was wrong. The way she moved, the expression on her face. This wasn't a business call or even a casual conversation with a friend. This was intimate, secretive. In her nervousness and the heat of the moment, Jenna had forgotten to maintain her usual careful deception. I made my decision right there by the pool, with Lily desperately trying to distract me with spilled drinks and inappropriate flirting. I was going back to that cabin, and I was going to find out exactly what kind of call required that much privacy. Some foundations can't be repaired. Sometimes you have to tear everything down and start over. The cabin door was ajar. Such a small detail, but it stopped me cold on the wooden steps. In 15 years of marriage, Jenna had never left a door unlocked, let alone standing open. She was obsessive about security, the kind of woman who checked the deadbolt 3 times before bed. But there it was. Our supposed sanctuary cracked open like an invitation, or maybe like a wound that couldn't quite heal shut. I pulled out my phone and started recording before I took another step. Some instinct born from years of documenting construction defects and insurance claims kicked in. Whatever was about to happen, I'd need proof. The voices hit me first. Jenna's laugh, breathy and wild in a way I hadn't heard since our honeymoon. Then a man's voice, low and confident, saying things that made my hands shake as I held the phone steady. "God, I've missed you," the voice said. 2 weeks felt like forever. "I know, baby. But we had to be careful. David's been watching me more closely lately." David. My own name, spoken like a problem to be managed. I moved closer to the partially open bedroom door, keeping the phone aimed through the gap. The image on the screen was small but clear enough. My wife of 15 years tangled up with Marcus Webb, the smooth-talking regional sales manager from the Lexus dealership where she'd bought her car last month. Marcus Webb, all polished charm and expensive suits, the kind of man who smelled like cologne and made promises about luxury that my honest paycheck could never deliver. Everything I wasn't, refined, well-dressed, and apparently convinced that other men's wives were just another commodity to be acquired. "When are you going to tell him?" Marcus asked, his hands moving through her hair like he owned her. "Soon," Jenna whispered. "I just need to get everything in place first. The accounts, the lawyer, all of it. He can't know until I'm ready." "You've been saying soon for months." "I know. But you don't understand David like I do. He seems harmless, but when he's angry—" She shuddered, and I realized she was setting up a narrative, playing the victim before she'd even struck the blow. "He's never hurt you, has he?" "Not physically. But the emotional manipulation, the way he makes me feel guilty for wanting more than this life he's trapped me in." Her voice broke with practiced vulnerability. "Sometimes I think he does it on purpose. Keeps me isolated so I'll be dependent on him." I almost laughed at the cruel irony. She was describing exactly what she'd been doing to me for months. The emotional manipulation, the guilt, the isolation. But she was painting herself as the victim of her own tactics. They kept talking, but I'd heard enough. The recording was 3 minutes long and contained everything I needed. Proof of the affair, evidence of her plan to divorce me while claiming abuse, and enough detail about their timeline to establish that this wasn't some recent mistake, but a calculated campaign. I backed away from the door as quietly as I'd approached. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, all from Jenna and Lily wondering where I was, demanding I answer, growing increasingly frantic as they realized their carefully orchestrated deception was falling apart. The drive home took 4 hours. 4 hours of ignoring the constant buzz of my phone, 4 hours of watching the mountains give way to plains, 4 hours of planning what came next. By the time I reached our neighborhood, I wasn't the same man who'd packed hopefully for a romantic getaway 3 days earlier. That man had believed in redemption, in the possibility that love could overcome any obstacle if you just tried hard enough. This man understood that some people mistake kindness for weakness, loyalty for stupidity, and love for leverage. I stopped at Home Depot first. New locks, heavy-duty deadbolts, the kind that couldn't be picked or bypassed with a credit card. While I was there, I bought a small fireproof safe for important documents. Then I stopped at Office Depot for cloud storage backup drives and printed copies of the recording. By the time I got home, I'd already researched 3 divorce attorneys who specialized in adultery cases, forwarded the video to my personal email account from 3 different addresses, and made a list of everyone who needed to see what Jenna and Marcus thought they'd hidden. The house felt different when I walked in. Smaller somehow. Like learning the truth had changed the fundamental architecture of the place where I'd thought I was building a life. But foundations can be rebuilt. Sometimes that's the only choice you have. My garage had always been my sanctuary, the one place in the house where everything had its purpose and nothing was there just for show. Now it became something more, a command center for systematic justice. I'd cleared off my workbench and spread out everything like blueprints for a new construction project, printed copies of the recording transcript, financial statements going back 2 years, phone records I'd subpoenaed through Amanda Reeves, the divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict infidelity cases. "Most men in your situation want blood," Amanda had said during our first meeting, reviewing the evidence with the clinical detachment of a surgeon examining X-rays. "They want to scream, break things, make dramatic gestures that feel good in the moment but hurt them in court." "I'm not most men," I'd replied. "No, you're not." She'd smiled then, the kind of expression a general might wear when surveying a battlefield. "That's why we're going to destroy them completely." The investigation had revealed the scope of Jenna's betrayal went far beyond sex in hotel rooms. She'd been planning her escape for months, systematically moving money to accounts I didn't know existed. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there, but it added up to nearly $15,000 of our savings. More damaging was what I'd learned about her campaign to poison our social circle against me. Phone records showed dozens of calls to her mother, her sister, even my own brother, spreading carefully crafted lies about my behavior. How I was becoming controlling and paranoid. How she was scared to leave because of what I might do. The genius of it was how she'd used my own personality against me. My natural privacy, my tendency to work through problems internally rather than broadcasting them to friends and family. She'd twisted these traits into evidence of something sinister. "She's been building her victim narrative for months," Amanda explained, showing me text message chains she'd obtained through discovery. Classic manipulation playbook. Isolate the target, control the narrative, then claim self-defense when you strike. Except Jenna had made one critical mistake. She'd chosen the wrong target. Tony Rodriguez, my crew chief, stopped by on a Thursday evening while I was working late in the garage. We'd been friends for 8 years, ever since he'd started working for my company, and he was one of the few people who knew the real story. "You doing okay, boss?" he asked, studying the organized chaos of papers and files covering every surface. "Better than okay," I said, showing him the latest discovery. "Turns out Marcus Webb isn't just an adulterer, he's a criminal." The background check Amanda had run revealed Marcus's pattern of financial fraud. He'd been using fake identities to avoid creditors, running up debt on credit cards issued to names that barely existed, then disappearing when the bills came due. His expensive lifestyle was built entirely on other people's money. "This guy's got warrants in 2 states, I told Tony. Fraud, identity theft, check kiting, and Jenna thinks he's going to take care of her once she leaves me." Tony whistled low. "Man's got bigger problems than your wife." "Had bigger problems," I corrected. "I solved them for him this morning." I'd made a series of phone calls that afternoon, to the fraud departments at 3 major banks, to the district attorney's office in Jefferson County, to Marcus's employer with copies of the evidence Amanda had compiled. By the time Marcus Webb tried to clock in for work the next morning, he'd discover that his carefully constructed house of cards had collapsed overnight. "What about Jenna?" Tony asked. I smiled and pulled out the final piece of my plan. Divorce papers that would strip her of everything she thought she'd cleverly hidden away, backed by evidence so comprehensive that no judge in Colorado would grant her a single concession. "She wanted a new life so badly," I said. "I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for." They returned on Sunday evening like conquering heroes. Jenna and Lily laughing as they climbed out of Lily's car with their overnight bags, and the glow of women who thought they'd pulled off the perfect crime. The laughter died when they realized their key wouldn't work. I watched through the front window as Jenna tried the lock 3 times, then pulled out her phone to call me. I let it ring while she and Lily exchanged panicked glances on my doorstep. When she tried again, I answered on the first ring. "Having trouble getting in?" I asked. "David, what's wrong with the lock?" "Did something happen to the house?" "Nothing happened to the house. I changed the locks," I replied. Silence. Then, "Why would you do that?" "Open your text messages," I replied. I'd sent her a single screenshot 30 minutes ago, a frame from the video showing her and Marcus in a position that left no room for interpretation. Not the whole recording, just enough to let her know exactly what kind of conversation we were about to have. "David, I can explain," she stammered. "No need. I'll be right out," I replied. I'd spent the morning preparing for this moment, arranging the living room like a courtroom. The divorce papers were stacked neatly on the coffee table beside printed copies of financial records, bank statements, and phone logs. Everything she'd thought was hidden, laid out like evidence in a murder trial. When I opened the door, Jenna's face was white as construction paper. Lily stood behind her, no longer the confident accomplice who'd spent months helping orchestrate my humiliation. "Let's talk inside," I said, stepping aside to let them enter. Jenna moved like she was walking to her execution, which in a way, she was. Everything about her body language screamed guilt. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes, how her hands shook as she set down her purse, the careful distance she maintained from the coffee table where the evidence waited. "David, before you say anything..." "Sit down," I demanded. My voice carried the authority I used with construction crews when safety was on the line. No negotiation, no discussion, just compliance or consequences. She sat. "We need to discuss the divorce," I said, settling into the chair across from her like we were negotiating a business contract. "I've made this as simple as possible." The papers I handed her were comprehensive. No alimony, no claim to the house, no access to retirement accounts she'd never contributed to. Just a clean separation that would leave her with exactly what she'd brought to the marriage 15 years ago. Nothing. "You can't be serious," she whispered, scanning the terms. "Half of everything is mine by law." "Read the next page," I replied. The adultery clause was beautifully written, thanks to Amanda's expertise. In Colorado, infidelity doesn't automatically void marital property rights, but it can be used to justify an unequal distribution when combined with financial misconduct. Jenna's secret accounts, her months of lies, her systematic campaign to destroy my reputation, all of it documented and ready for court. "There's no way you can prove any of this," Lily said, finally finding her voice. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Jenna's voice filled the room, talking about getting everything in place while describing me as emotionally manipulative. Marcus's voice responding with intimate details about their affair. 3 minutes of crystal-clear evidence that would make any trial a formality. Jenna's face crumpled like a demolished building. "David, please. We can work this out. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "It meant everything," I said quietly. "It meant you've been planning to destroy me for months. It meant you've been poisoning everyone we know against me. It meant every day for the past year has been a lie." The front door opened before she could respond. I'd given a key to one more person who needed to hear this conversation. Jenna's mother, Carol, who'd spent 15 years treating me like a disappointing son-in-law who wasn't quite good enough for her precious daughter. Carol walked in prepared to defend Jenna, her mouth already open to deliver whatever lecture she'd rehearsed about my responsibilities as a husband. Instead, she heard her daughter's recorded voice describing how she'd manipulated our marriage while planning my destruction. The silence that followed was absolute. Carol looked at Jenna like she was seeing a stranger. How could you do this to him? To us? Mom, it's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. Carol's voice was hollow. I raised you better than this. 20 minutes later, they were gone. All of them. Even Lily had nothing to say as they loaded their shame into the car and drove away from the house where I'd thought we were building something permanent. I stood in my doorway and watched their taillights disappear, feeling lighter than I had in months. 6 months later, I stood on the foundation of a new house in Highlands Ranch, watching my crew prepare for the concrete pour. The October morning was crisp and clear, the kind of Colorado day that makes you grateful to be alive and working with your hands. Looks good, boss, Tony said, checking the forms one final time. This one's going to last forever. That's the plan. The foundation is everything in construction. Get it right, and the house will stand for generations. Cut corners, ignore the engineering, build on unstable ground, and eventually everything comes crashing down. It's a lesson that applies to more than just construction. Jenna's life had collapsed exactly as I'd predicted. The divorce was final within 3 months. She'd signed everything without contest once she realized fighting would only expose more of her lies to public scrutiny. Marcus Webb's legal troubles had multiplied exponentially. He was currently serving 18 months for financial fraud, and his wife had taken him for everything in their divorce. Lily's marriage hadn't survived the revelation of her role in the deception. Rob had filed for divorce as soon as he learned she'd been helping orchestrate affairs instead of working on her own relationship. The sisters were closer than ever now, bonded by mutual destruction and diminished prospects. I hadn't seen any of them since that final confrontation in my living room, though Jenna had tried to contact me twice. Once through a mutual friend, asking if we could talk things through like adults. Once directly, 3 weeks ago, with a text message that simply said, I was wrong about everything. Can we try again? My response had been brief. You wanted a vacation from our marriage. Enjoy the permanent one. The house was quiet now, peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. I'd kept it exactly as it was, not from sentiment but from practicality. The mortgage was manageable on my income alone, the neighborhood was good, and I'd invested too much work in the renovations to walk away. Some evenings I sat on the deck I'd built by hand, drinking beer with Tony and the crew, talking about work and sports and everything except relationships. These men had stood by me when my marriage imploded, offering the kind of loyalty that can't be bought or manipulated. I built my life on solid foundations. She built hers on lies. Guess which one survived the earthquake? And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Should I feel bad that I didn't fulfill all 3 of those conditions? I may not have nailed that whole truth thing. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Oh well, life goes on. Karen, my wife, is an up-and-coming investment manager and has her sights set on replacing her father, Lou, when he retires at the end of the year. Lou has, for the last 30 years, managed what has turned into a multi-billion-dollar retirement fund for a state-sponsored entity. A committee was reviewing applications for Lou's successor and, with Lou's input, had narrowed their choices to Karen and one other. Lou is a pompous individual. He and I never hit it off. He is loudly opinionated and thinks very little of my career. The less time I can spend around him, the happier I am. When we got engaged, it was Lou that had a most punitive prenup drawn up. Basically, if infidelity is involved, you get to keep your shadow. If there are kids, It gets even uglier. There is a formula for alimony. I was unfazed by it all, as fidelity means a lot to me. My name is Larry Trompeur. Karen and I were both 29 when we met at a conference, just under 3 years ago. I'm an executive for a company that creates and manages limited partnerships. Karen works for a company that provides investment advice. On the day of the conference, Karen was making a presentation on the tax benefits of some new investment products. At the dinner afterward, Karen and her associate Sasha joined me at my table. Both ladies were very flirtatious, and we decided to go dancing after dinner. We landed at a nightclub named Spread Your Wings. I enjoyed the company of both on the dance floor, but after a while it was Karen who had claimed me for herself. I certainly didn't object, as either one would have made me happy. Karen was certainly the driving force in our courtship. It was less than 2 weeks after we met when things became serious between us. It was a Friday, and, as I got home from work, Karen met me at my place. "Let's skip dinner and spend the evening in your place," she suggested with a mischievous smile. Our relationship progressed quickly from there. She was quite passionate, and we connected on a deep level that I hadn't experienced before. There was a genuine chemistry between us that went beyond the physical. There was more to our relationship than just physical attraction. Much like the night Karen claimed me, she was quite possessive at the parties we attended. With her line of work, there were weekly parties. She made it clear that she didn't like to attend these alone. The men, according to her, were always making crude remarks and behaving inappropriately toward her. When we weren't attending parties, we'd dine or dance or just hang out. There was very little time spent away from each other up until the end. This was the first marriage for each of us. Lou put on a grand extravaganza for his baby girl. Much of Karen's paycheck depended on her commissions. My paycheck carried us for the first year. We were starting to save for a house. About 6 months before the end, Karen landed some major contracts and her bonuses were substantial. She continued to have success, but her demeanor also changed. She was turning into Lou before my eyes. All of a sudden, I was not as good a partner as before. Along with her work success, Karen and Sasha, who was still single, started doing a girls' night out. They would do this about once a month. The place they liked to dance at was Spread Your Wings, where we had danced when we met. The last few times Karen had come home fairly intoxicated and her clothes disheveled. I was having doubts about her fidelity. At a recent family gathering, Lou had too much to drink and was tossing insults at just about everyone. I left Karen with the car and found a ride home. She was more than upset when she got home. "Why did you leave me there?" she demanded as she stormed through the door. "I told her to deal with it as he's her father, and if he can't act civil, I would not be spending time around him." "He's just being himself," Karen defended. "You need to learn to ignore him." "I shouldn't have to ignore anyone at a family gathering. That's not how respect works." It wasn't even a week later that I had a seminar at a downtown hotel. As I was checking in with the office during a break, I saw Lou enter an elevator. Maybe nothing to it, but the more I dwelled on it, the more sinister I thought it was. One of my friends, from work, has a brother who does investigative work. He cut me a deal to do a quick check on Lou. Turns out Lou likes to spend his good fortune with escorts. I gave the investigator a nice tip. Next time the man starts in on me, I'm going to confront him with this information. There had been a few homes broken into in our subdivision. I asked my landlord if I could hook up one of those porch motion detector devices. He gave his approval, so I installed it. When triggered, it would take a short video and, using our Wi-Fi connection, send an alert to the app on my phone. Karen was out shopping when I installed it. I tried to show it to her when she got home, but she brushed me off saying she had to get ready for her girls' night out. I told Karen it was time to end the girls' nights out. We didn't fight about it, but it was a spirited debate. "Karen, I think it's time to reconsider these nights out," I said carefully. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked defensively. "I'm uncomfortable with you going dancing with strangers every month. It doesn't seem like something a married woman should be doing." She was having none of it. We went back and forth. "Your need to go dancing is concerning me," I persisted. She dismissed it as just normal time away from me. "You are jumping to conclusions and it's not what you think," was her dismissive comment. Around 7 p.m., Sasha in jeans arrived. She and Karen, in a dress, left without saying much. I decided I'd drop by to see how Karen acted on her night out. Friday nights were very popular at Spread Your Wings. Finding a parking spot was the first challenge. It was so crowded I was forced to stand far from the dance floor. It took a while to find Karen on the dance floor, and Elle wasn't thrilled with what I saw. She was pulled close to a guy, and one of his hands was placed inappropriately on her, while his other hand rested comfortably in another inappropriate place. After the song finished, I watched them head to their table. Sasha and some guy had their chairs side by side. At least with jeans on, Sasha was making it tougher for her guy to invade her personal space. Karen and her guy pulled their chairs side by side. Looked like all four had at least one hand under the table. Karen's guy pulled his hand up, sniffed it, then leaned in and said something to Karen. She leaned back into him. I sent a message. "I've seen enough. Get a room. I'm going home to pack." I left and was just about home when I got a text back. "Pack for what?" "I'm moving out," I replied. A minute later, my phone sounded Karen's ringtone. "What the hell is this all about?" Karen demanded. "From what I saw tonight, it's not a matter of if you will cheat, just when. I'm guessing the when has already happened based on how you were acting tonight." "Nothing has happened. Not tonight. Not any night. You are jumping to conclusions and it's not what you think," Karen replied. "Well, his fingers were dry before they dipped below the table. They weren't dry when I saw them again." "Nothing like that happened. You are very mistaken," Karen pleaded. "I can come up with no explanation as to why your hands were never on the table either. I need time away from you at this point." "I have done nothing wrong. It was harmless flirting. You are jumping to conclusions and it's not what you think," Karen answered. "When my wife has to flirt with strangers to feel like a woman, it's time for me to reconsider whether I should even be married." "It's not like that. I've done nothing wrong," Karen pressed. "What you were doing didn't pass the spouse sniff test. This is going nowhere. I'm spending at least the next few nights in a motel. I'll be in touch." I hung up as I parked by our unit. I only packed for a few days. I figured I could get back to the apartment in a day or two and grab more clothes. As I was waiting at the light to turn onto the highway, my phone buzzed that someone was at my porch. I glanced. It was Karen. Karen's ringtone again. I picked up. "You're really staying in a motel?" she asked incredulously. "On my way. There was no reason for you to hurry home. I didn't mean to jumpstart your conscience." Poor dude, leaving him all worked up. "Wait, maybe you had time to finish your evening with him." "I can't believe you. Nothing happened. You are jumping to conclusions, and it's not what you think." "I wonder why he was sniffing his fingers." "Nothing like that happened." "Well, as long as you refuse to be honest, we are done. Good night." I powered down my phone. I found one of those weekly stay places a few blocks from where I work. I paid for a week and settled into my room. I can't say it was a good night's sleep, but a little sleep is better than none. Almost dreading it, I powered on my cell phone. As expected, several voicemails and texts professing her complete innocence and my totally wrong imagination. I sent her a text. "How about a lie detector test? I'm getting checked for STDs today." Her response took a while and was evasive. "Waste all the money you want on tests." "Great. When do you want to do the lie detector test?" I pushed. "I didn't say I would. Sasha says they are no better than a coin toss." "Okay. I flipped a coin. Heads, you've been cheating. Tails, you're being honest. Oh no, it came up heads." "I can't believe you think that. All I've done is go out dancing. You are jumping to conclusions and it's not what you think. Your body is supposed to be off limits to other men. What I saw last night was none were off limits. It wasn't like that. I won't continue living like this. That's why I moved out. I think we should try a separation." No calls or texts from Karen the rest of the day. Imagine my surprise when the porch video caught Karen leaving, in a dress, around 7 p.m. Around 10 p.m., another porch video showed Karen arriving home. She was accompanied by a guy who also entered the apartment. He left about 30 minutes later. Maybe they watched the 10 o'clock news. I knew the marriage was over, but I really needed to get my proof for the prenup. I spent Sunday locating a supplier for bedroom surveillance equipment. Once purchased, I decided to take a long lunch on Monday and install it. The nice thing about being this close to work was the extra half hour to eat and get ready in the morning. At lunch, I went back to my apartment, gathered some of our financial records, grabbed a couple of suitcases of clothing, and packed the rest of my bathroom stuff. The bedroom camera hooked up pretty easily to the ceiling light fixture. It would upload to the cloud using the Wi-Fi. That night I got a text. "I see you stopped by. Ready to talk yet?" "As soon as I get your lie detector test results," I replied. That was it. No back and forth tonight. The rest of the week was quiet, and work was more productive than usual. On Friday, I extended my stay another week. The porch video buzzed around 7 p.m. Sasha showed up in jeans, and Karen, in a dress, headed out. Saturday morning, I reviewed the porch videos. Like the week before, Karen returned around 10 p.m. with a different guy from the week before. He left about 30 minutes later. I logged in and viewed the uploaded bedroom video. I had all I would ever need to get an uncontested divorce. The video was disturbing to watch as a husband, but it confirmed what I had suspected. Karen had betrayed our marriage vows in the most intimate way possible. I won't go into the details, but suffice it to say, the encounter was far from romantic. It was crude, disrespectful, and clearly showed Karen was willing to be intimate with a complete stranger she had met at the club. What surprised me most was what happened at the end. The man pulled out his wallet and threw 2 bills on the bed. "See you again at Wings," he said casually. Karen picked up the bills and looked at them for a brief moment, then unloaded on him. "What is this? I'm not that kind of woman. Take your money and get out of here. You're pathetic, you loser." Karen threw the bills at him. He scooped them, then held them up. "No problem, lady. You weren't worth half of this anyway. You need to sign up for lessons." He disappeared from the bedroom. Karen took a pillow and slammed it down on the bed, about 20 times, then hurled it across the room. I almost felt sorry for her. Who am I trying to fool? I couldn't have been happier with the outcome. I guess it's going to be a tough sell for Karen to get me to believe I had misinterpreted this. I watched the video over and over. It occurred to me that if someone were to end the video as Karen was holding the 2 bills, they might get the wrong impression of what had happened. Isn't it wonderful all the video editing tools you can get nowadays? The final product was simply perfect. This revenge was far beyond my wildest dreams. I would need to get back into the apartment to get all of the email addresses I needed for the ambush. A few days later, I took a long lunch and found all that I needed. I no longer needed the bedroom camera, so I took it down. Friday night around 6 p.m., I knocked on Karen's door. "Well, look who decided to grace me with his presence. For what do I owe this pleasure? It's your home, you didn't need to knock," Karen said with a hint of sarcasm. "Karen, I've decided I don't need the lie detector test anymore," I replied calmly. "You never did, Larry. Ready to talk?" She seemed hopeful. "Karen, have a seat. I've got something you're going to want to see. Things have already been resolved, so consider it fait accompli. As you know, this is still my apartment. I had every right to install cameras. Since the videos were shot in my apartment with my equipment, I'm also allowed to share them with whomever I choose. I'm so anxious for you to see this, and then I'll tell you who I've shared this with." Karen's smirk had been replaced with an odd look, mostly panic mixed with horror. I clicked the play arrow. "What is this? You had no right!" she gasped. Then, when the video ended, she really got into my face. "Where's the rest of the video? This isn't how it ended. You horrible person!" "Well, Karen, your response tells me all I need to know about our marriage. No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to hurt you. Nothing like that. No remorse at all. I'm probably jumping to conclusions and it's not what I think, but it looks like you were getting paid for intimacy. Kind of like an escort. What parts have I gotten wrong? Where's the rest of the video? I'm not an escort. I gave him the money back. Well, from what I saw, you were probably overcharging him anyway. How much did you get? 2 tens? They were $100 bills, she admitted unwittingly. Wow, you're a high-priced companion. I guess business at Wings is pretty good, huh? Am I jumping to conclusions again? I'm not that kind of woman. Actually, Karen, you are. This was filmed last weekend. You were married and being intimate with someone other than your husband. That makes you unfaithful whether you got paid or not. As I said earlier, I've already done what I'm going to do. She tried to grab my phone, but I was able to keep her at bay. Give me the video. You had no right. You can't share this with anybody. Well, let's talk about who I've shared this with. I was concerned that people would think I was involved in your activities, so I sent a copy to the sheriff with a note expressing my deep concern that your operation could have adverse effects on me. I volunteered to testify as a witness for the state. I hope they don't jump to conclusions. You did what? I'm not doing anything illegal. It's not what it looks like. Let's move on. Your father uses similar services. I've got an investigator's report proving that. I've sent that report and this video to both him and your mother. If you're not opposed to awkward family dynamics, Daddy has no problem paying for company. The panic and horror look from earlier was nothing compared to this. She was bug-eyed, her nostrils were flared, and she was shaking with clutched fists. I hate you. You are the worst person I've ever met. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. Great minds think alike. Why? Why did you have to get them involved? This is between us. If I had videos of all the individuals you've been seeing, I'd have given them those too. Let's move on. I also sent to the investment committee this video and the report on your father. I suspect they will have time to review them prior to deciding on a new managing director. Oh no. Karen collapsed on the floor. It had taken a while, but the tears were starting to flow. Karen, thanks to Lou, it looks like I get to keep all the savings and checking account money. My lawyer has instructed the bank to place a freeze on those accounts. Also, thanks to your ability to close a deal, you will owe me alimony. Thanks, sweetheart. I went to the front door and invited the process server in. He tapped her shoulder. Karen Trompeur, you have been served. It's not what it looks like. There's more to the video. You can't do this to me. You had no right, she pleaded. I know, Karen. I'm always jumping to conclusions and am just too stupid to understand it's not what I think. Hey, if you hurry and get cleaned up, you still have time to get to Wings and round up another client for tonight. I hate you! Yes, you did, but paybacks sure are sweet. Have a nice life, Karen. I wonder how this video would look online. No, you can't. Please don't, please, please don't, please. She was begging now. We'll see. Maybe if you're a good person and don't contest the divorce. I headed out. Hey, Sasha. You're looking good. She's not quite ready to leave yet, I said coldly as I passed her in the hall. My shattered pride has been soothed by the exacted revenge. The sheriff did contact me. They had spoken with Karen, but since there just wasn't a clear offer to provide companionship for money, no charges would be filed. They told her that they would be keeping a close watch on her activities. Her father didn't have to wait until the end of the year to retire. He was fired. He seems to be living at a motel. Karen's mom must have jumped to conclusions about his activities. Karen's hopes and dreams about replacing her father as managing director were derailed. Just a simple, thank you for your application. We have decided to proceed in a different direction. I got a text from Sasha. When this is over, would you like to go dancing? I sat looking at that text for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond positively. After all, Sasha had always been attractive, and there had been that initial chemistry when we first met. But something felt wrong about it. Would I just be jumping from one bad situation to another? Was Sasha really that different from Karen? They were best friends after all, and Sasha had been present during all those nights at Wings. "I appreciate the offer, Sasha, but I need time to heal," I texted back. "I don't think seeing anyone connected to this mess would be healthy for me right now." She didn't respond, which confirmed my suspicions that her interest wasn't genuine. Perhaps Karen had put her up to it, trying to find a way back into my life or gather information. Whatever the case, I knew I had made the right decision. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work. The company promoted me after I secured several key partnerships that significantly increased our portfolio. I also started volunteering at a local community center, teaching financial literacy to young adults. It gave me purpose beyond revenge and helped me process my anger in a constructive way. I met with a therapist twice a month to work through my trust issues. Dr. Jenkins helped me understand that while my revenge had given me temporary satisfaction, true healing would only come when I could let go of the bitterness. It wasn't an easy process, but gradually, I felt the weight lifting. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Karen at a coffee shop downtown. She looked thinner, tired, with dark circles under her eyes. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw a complex mixture of emotions: shame, anger, regret. She quickly looked away and left without her order. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, no pity, just emptiness where the rage had once burned. That's when I knew I was finally starting to heal. When the courts granted the divorce, I received all of the money and they approved the alimony. With the divorce behind me, I just couldn't help myself. I sent to Karen, from an anonymous source, a copy of the full video. Is it too late for that to count as the whole truth? A year after my divorce, I sold the apartment and bought a small house with a garden in a quiet suburb. I adopted a dog from the shelter, a mutt named Buddy who had trust issues of his own. Together, we learned to be comfortable in our new life. I dated occasionally, but I was in no rush to enter another serious relationship. The betrayal had taught me to be more cautious, but Dr. Jenkins had helped me understand that being cautious didn't mean closing myself off completely. Sometimes when I look back at everything that happened, I wonder if I went too far with my revenge. The prenup would have protected me financially without destroying Karen's career and family. But then I remember the look on her face when she was dancing with that stranger, how easily she had betrayed our vows, and I know that some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness. One thing I've learned is that the truth, the whole truth, is often messy and complicated. Karen wasn't entirely innocent, but perhaps I wasn't entirely justified in my response. We were both flawed people who hurt each other in different ways. As for Lou, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he and Karen's mother had reconciled and moved to Florida. Karen had found work at a smaller firm, far below her previous status, but at least she was employed in her field. And me? I'm still learning how to trust again, one day at a time. The truth may have set me free, but sometimes I wonder at what cost. 2 out of 3 may not be bad, but maybe next time I'll try for all 3. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.